Today I'm going to take you on a tour around the data binding capabilities of the FNC Data Grid. I'm going to show you how the database adapter plays a role in that. I'm also going to cover the database adapter load mode, where you can select between all records loading and buffered loading. I'm going to show you how different field types are treated in the grid and how you can also select different formatting, different editors for different field types in the grid. And finally, I'm also going to show you how you can perform grouping on a data-bound grid. So follow me in the Delphi IDE, where I will show you everything in detail. So this is our Delphi IDE with the demo application that we created for you. It is a FireMonkey application, but we could have done exactly the same in a VCL application, because remember, FNC controls can be used in exactly the same way in VCL applications and also FireMonkey and WebCore applications. The source code for this demo that we created for you, you can download it here in the link in the description of the video. So what do we have? We have a default data grid on the form, and we have a data module containing a data set and a data source. Of course, the data set is connected to the data source, and it is a client data set. We have loaded it with what else than the BioLife data set, the data set we are familiar with for almost 30 years now, and still working, and still a good example for showing data binding capabilities in controls. On the form of the application, we have the crucial component, the database adapter. The database adapter sits between the data grid and the data source, and it is the database adapter that makes our database or data grid data aware or not. When you're not using the database adapter, you can use the data grid also in a non-data bound scenario and load the data in other ways, manipulate the data in other ways, etc. But when you want to hook up to data sets in Delphi, then you will want to use the database adapter. The database adapter here is connected to the data source, which is our data source that is in the data module. And one important property feature here is the columns property. And the columns property, it's empty here, but here you can add the fields that you want to have in the grid that are in the data set. And you can see that you can select here the field names in your data set. Now I leave it empty because I'm taking advantage of the auto create columns that is set to true, and that actually means that the database adapter will simply load all fields of the data set into the data grid. The database adapter is connected to the data grid adapter property, as you can see here in the object inspector. To get everything up and running, there is not much more needed than activating the database adapter, which you can see here. We have, with this exit statement, for now excluded all the other functionality. We'll cover that in a moment, but activating the database adapter is enough to get everything up and running, which I will show you right now. This is our application, and I click the connect, activating the database adapter, and you can see all the data loaded in our data grid. You can see the blob memo field here, and you can also see that for a graphic blob, the grid will automatically display the graphic for you in this column. We have also activated with properties that the grid can perform sorting by clicking on the fixed column header row, and also filtering is enabled. When I click the filter drop down, you see the distinct values in this column, and you can automatically filter on this field or in this column in this case. And so that is everything that you already get out of the box with just activating the database adapter hooked up or connected to the data grid. So let's take this step further, and I will show you a few more customizing possibilities in the grid. And first of all, we'll have a look at formatting and specifying what editors to use for the database fields. And we do that by this piece of code, where we actually get access to a field in the dataset by using the column at field. So we get the column that is hooked up to a specific field. This is the field from the BioLife database. And here we can specify, in this case, what formatting for a number field that will be applied to this value. And what we also specify here is the editor type. So instead of what could be a spin editor or regular editor, we will specify here that to change the length value, we will use a trackbar as an in-place editor for the grid. For the category field, we also do some customization, and this includes specifying a combo box as in-place editor. And here we actually specify that the combo box should be filled automatically with the distinct values. Here is that actually happening with the distinct values in this particular field. And finally, we also have the nodes field, which is the blob memo field. We access it with this column at field specifying the field name. And for this column, we specify to use a HTML editor. So we can actually add HTML formatted text to that blob memo field. And with this event handler that we assign, we actually get the full text for this blob field instead of the memo, just the memo word that is displayed in the column. So when we do that, that is for getting the data or getting the text and setting the text, that we implement these onGetText and onSetText event handlers. And finally, some extra things that we add here, which is stretching the column, so we ensure that the grid, the columns in the grid will fill up the entire available width in the grid. So with this additional setup code added, let's see what difference it makes when I connect to the grid. What you can already see here is now that in the nodes column, we have the text value of the blob field displayed. What you can also see is when I hover this column, then you can see the full text of this memo field in the hint. That was also a customization that was applied. You can see also for the length that some formatting is already applied with the centimeters extension, for example, also available here. And you can see that when I click this field, our trackbar is already working, and we can use the trackbar to perform the editing. When we double click on the nodes, we have our HTML editor active for now. And so from here, I can, for example, apply HTML formatting to this particular column. So let's go one more step further, where we will now perform custom drawing, and what you already saw that is enabled, the cell value based coloring of cells. For the custom drawing, we are going to implement two event handlers. That is the on before draw cell. So let's see these in the object inspector. Here we have the on after draw cell that we implemented and the on before draw cell. So these event handlers can be used to customize drawing in cells. And we are actually going to perform that on a specific column. This is the selected column in our grid that contains the category. And you can see here the actual implementation of the custom drawing, where we will show the well, it's maybe better to first see it in effect when this custom drawing is applied, and then we can have a look at the code. But this is how the custom drawing was performed. When we click it, we have the drop down, and remember that we filled the drop down with the distinct values within this category column. And so if we go back to the custom drawing implementation, what we can see here is that from the bitmap container we draw a bitmap. When it is in editing mode, we are not doing anything, because then of course the drop down is displayed. And here is, you can see, depending on the value in the category field, we apply some different colors, and then we draw this rounded rectangle instead of just the plain text, and we draw the text of the field on top of this rounded rectangle. So that is something that you can do to perform custom drawing in cells. And the other thing that I wanted to show you, let me see where we have this event handler. This is the event handler that will automatically change the color of the value, and I believe, let me have a look at the application when it is running. So we are in the length column, and here you can see that if the value is actually higher than 100, it is highlighted with a different background color and a different font color. And this is in our code. Here it is in the onGetCell layout event. So we are not performing custom drawing here. We are just changing the properties of the cell. In this case, as you can see here, when the value is larger than 100, we will set the font color, and we will also change the background color of the cell. And that is sufficient to just do data dependent changing of properties of cells. Then I will show you what you can do with grouping in the data grid. And for that, we have also here this checkbox with which we can select or change the load mode of the database adapter. So the database adapter can load the data into the grid in two ways: the buffered load mode and the all records load mode. In the buffered load mode, which is the most performant load mode, the grid will only load the visual records in the grid. And that means that when you start up the grid and you have a database of, let's say, 1 million records, it will only at first load the first visual records in the data set. As you scroll to the grid, it will load the next buffer of data, the next set of visual records. And so it does this while you are scrolling through the grid. When you change the load mode to all records, then it will load all records, so that 1 million records at once, into the data grid. And when you have all records, the grid can perform things like grouping, for example. That's why we need to enable the all records mode to have the grid do grouping. And the grouping is simply done by calling the group method. And let's see what happens when we activate this grouping. So I uncheck buffered, I connect, and then I perform a group by category. And this is how it is then shown in the grid. You can see here in the group of COT, we have two records that fall into this group. And Snapper also has a couple of fish in that category. And that is how the grid can perform the grouping. And you can see with one simple instruction that can be done. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to show you in this demo is how you can also immediately take advantage of PDF export, and the same applies to HTML export, for example. And we have the component for that, the Data Grid PDF I/O component, which is connected via the Data Grid property to our Data Grid, and the code to export to PDF becomes as simple as calling grid pdf.io.save with a PDF file name, and here with this property we instruct the PDF exporter to also automatically try to open that PDF file, and in a PDF viewer that is set up in Windows. So let's see, when I run my application again, I connect, and we click here the export to PDF button. Now it has generated on the fly. Let's do that again. I'm not sure what this message is in Foxit is in this machine installed, the Foxit PDF reader, but you can see here the PDF that was exported, and it includes, of course, the custom drawing that we have specified for the data grid. So with this you can see how easy it is to get a PDF of your data from the data grid with just the PDF I/O and one call. And that was what I wanted to cover for the data binding in the data grid. Remember, the source code for this demo can be found with the link in this video description. When you want to know more about the data grid and other things about TMS software, of course, subscribe to our video channel, and then you will always be updated of new content that we have for you. Thanks you for watching.